All right, guys, we're going to take a look at doing some of the audio here because there was a lot of kind of unique skill set that went into doing this stuff that we did in class that I demonstrated. I just wanted to put together a little video for you so that you can make sure that you're doing things correctly and get the right results. So on your Slate page, I've done two things. I've added an announcement that gives you directions to add your projects to your Epic launcher. So if I do the Epic launcher here, I'm at home, so Unreal does know where all my projects are. So when the Epic Games launcher launches, and I'm in Unreal, and I go to the library, I'm going to hit Fix Now. There are now all of my projects. At the school, this doesn't happen because we don't have roaming profiles. So the first thing that I've done are the instructions here that you've got to go and do. Now, don't just go look for this folder. It won't exist. It's hidden from your view. You actually have to go and copy this into your address bar of a browser. You'll have to copy it in here to make that work. And then don't forget, you absolutely must close the launcher. That includes finding it in your section here and going to exit. Otherwise, when you go and edit that file, that INI file, it won't update if the launcher's running. And that means any changes you make won't be there. So once you do that, you should be able to see your project. That will allow you to add things from Fab. So once you have your projects here, if you go to add anything to project, for instance, I'll just do this one here, add to project. Now all my projects are visible. Okay, so that removes the need to go and migrate things and make an empty project and that kind of stuff. So that's the first thing I've gone and added for you. The second thing are the audio library links. So these are provided by the school. There are two of them. One of them we're not going to use, right? Remember, there is absolutely no music in this project, but I still wanted to give you the link to it so you can grab that one if you want. And then the sound effect library is the one that's up here. So I'm going to kind of go through a single audio sound to show you the idea with doing this, how I go through doing this. And then I'll show you how to do all of the things Unreal side. Okay. So I'm going to go into the track list here, and I've done a search for twig snap. It's a sound I'd like to put kind of dynamically in the background to make it sound like the woods are alive kind of thing outside the cottage. So I really like the sound of this one. So that's pretty good, but if you look at the line here, this is it's on a very long audio track, but the sound is only just right here. And so while this is a good audio track, I don't want to bring into Unreal a longer wave than necessary, a wave file that has dead space in it. I just literally want this one little section. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to grab the download button, grab it as a wave, and that'll get imported. You'll see Chrome here brings that in. And then I'm going to go into Audacity, and we're going to clean this up in Audacity. So I typically do a couple of things here when I'm working. I'm just going to hit OK here. The first is to get that file out of my downloads folder, which I've got off screen here. And I'm just going to drag it into my audio folder that I'm working with. And I'm going to rename it so that I don't confuse it with stuff I'm bringing into the engine. So this is source. We'll do all capitals here. And then underscore in twig snap. So now this is one of my source files. And you'll see that I've got a whole bunch of them here already grabbed. So now we can go File in Audacity, Import, and I'll go to Audio. And I'm going to go and grab that source, twig snap. So here it is here, and we can see tons of empty space, tons of empty space. I'm going to rewind, hit play. So there's that snap. Now, Audacity here is not behaving properly. I'm going to go to playback device here and make sure that this is in my headphones. I didn't hear it clearly. You probably did over the video, but that's a little bit better. At least I can hear it the way that it's supposed to sound. So if you look closely, there is a lot of little tiny bumps and things here. It's not just dead space. There's stuff there. So I'm going to grab all of the empty space here before the twig snap, and I'm going to go to Effect, Noise Removal and Repair, and we're going to noise reduction. Now, this is a two-step process. Process one is to get the profile of the noise, and that's why I've highlighted just the empty spot here, or the mostly empty spot. And I'm going to say, get the profile. And what that's going to do is it's going to analyze this chunk of the wave, figure out what noise sounds like. And now, if I double-click the wave to select the whole thing, go to Effect, go to, again, Noise Removal and Noise Reduction. Now, when I hit this button, it'll use the profile that we just grabbed to remove as much of that noise as it can. So if I rewind this and hit play, it's a little bit cleaner. Now, it's not perfect, but it doesn't need to be, because I'm going to delete most of what's here, and then I'm going to try and find about where it ends and delete it there. So you'll notice now, this is like less than half a second, right? We're almost at about a quarter of a second here. So it's a really short sound. Now, it doesn't completely fade out, so I'm just going to grab the last little bit of it, go to Effect, Fading, and we'll go and fade that out, just to make sure it doesn't kind of leave a little bit of emptiness there. Okay, a little bit better. So now that I have this little twig snap, we're going to go to File, Export Audio, and I'm going to put it in the same place, and just instead of this time being source, this is going to be my final wave file. So we'll export that. So now I've got in here a whole bunch of waves that I can use to make an ambient sound. Now, you might be thinking, and a lot of students get into this here, if I just look up cottage ambience, and we go and take a look at what's found here, you'll see that there are lengthy files that do have a lot of ambience to them. Why not just grab one of these? There's a 2.5 minute one, a 2 minute, almost 3 minute one here, another 2 minute, another 1 minute, another 2 minutes. Like, why not just grab one of these longer files, make it loop perfectly, and then just loop that over and over and over again? Well, the answer is that it's going to be detectable. So I've got a little chart here that we can look at. Up in the top is if we were to do that, to grab a longer file that we just repeat. And if you look at this here, you're going to see that this little noise here, whatever this happens to be, a bird chirp or a car going by, what have you, whenever you get this little repetition that happens in a longer file, it's going to start playing at regular intervals, and your audience will hear it. They'll be like, oh, here it comes. It's been about 13 seconds, and there's the car going by. So it becomes a lot more noticeable. Down here, what we've got are now varying random sounds that are playing at random volumes. If we take this orange one here as an example, there's an orange one here. This one's a little bit taller. This one's a little bit taller still. And then this one comes down. This one's a little bit taller, and this one comes down. So each one of these sounds is repeating. You can see there's a teal one here, and a teal one here, and a teal one here. But they're different volumes, and they're not occurring at regular intervals. So with a larger collection of small sounds, we can actually get this to play indefinitely and never repeat. So that's kind of the idea. We want to build a soundscape, something that is going to never repeat, so your audience doesn't kind of get used to the sounds, but still sounds alive and still sounds correct for the environment. So let's head over to Unreal. Here I am here inside of Unreal. Now, again, I don't have a theme. I didn't like this for anything in particular. I've put some stuff outside here just so we can see outside. I've got a sun and some atmosphere stuff. I just put a couple of light bulbs, one in each room type of thing, just so I can see the environment. This is by no means a finished lighting environment. It's just enough that I can see what's going on. I don't want to walk around in the unlit mode. The other thing is that I'm not doing a soundscape for a particular theme like you guys are. So I'm doing the audio for what I actually see. This is a cottage in the wilderness, and that's what I'm going to light. For you guys, your sounds have to fit your theme. So don't just reproduce the audio that I've collected, because that's not going to work for you. Okay, you're going to need to do something unique. So if your theme is science fiction, make sure the audio is science fiction in nature, right? You want to have sounds that are going to be a little bit different than what I'm getting. So I'm going to right click and make a new folder. I'm just in the default content folder here. I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call this audio. And now we're going to use different types of audio inside of the engine. So I'm first going to bring in my collection of waves that are the WAV files. So these are not the source files. These are the ones that I've now gone and cleaned up and trimmed. And you can see I've got a good collection of them here. I've got a dog barking, a car driving by, a frog, a loon, actually a couple of loon sounds, some soft wind, the twig snap that I just did, some waves, and a woodpecker. And so I've kind of got something of a, good collection of sounds that will sound like the outdoors. And that's kind of the idea. That's what I want to start kind of accumulating. So these don't get brought into the level. While it is possible to bring one of these in, we can't do anything with this. We actually want to kind of engineer the sound, if you will, instead of just putting a speaker somewhere and making it play. So the way that we do that is by adding an audio and then sound cue. So a sound cue is kind of like the material version of a sound. So while a texture can do things like color and roughness and that type of thing, different properties of what the material looks like, the material itself is the collection of those properties that we see. Well, a sound cue is a collection of properties that we hear. So it's kind of like the audio version of a material. So I'm going to do this sound cue, and I'll call it East. And again, the reason I'm doing this as East is that if we go look at this from the top here, that's where the water is on the east, and then on the west side is where the front door is. The north side is the dining room and the kitchen, and then the south side is the living room and there's a hallway upstairs here in the entrance. And so when I do this, the idea is to put a soundscape on each side that have overlap in the middle of the level. And so that way, as you walk around the level, you're going to pick up sounds from each side of the house, all of which are going to be slightly different, making it sound a little bit more natural. So we're going to switch here from top back to perspective so that we're back in the house. And we're going to go into the sound cue editor. So the sound cue editor has a giant graph here. When you have nothing selected, the sound cue's properties itself are what's visible here. I'm just going to set the volume multiplier to a default of 1 so that it's not making any of my sounds quieter. I'll take direct control over my audio. And the idea is to make a bunch of nodes here that all wire up into the output, and that's what's going to be heard. So let's begin. I'm going to start with the longest sounds that make up the bulk of the environment. So that would be my soft wind followed by my waves, and then I'm going to start layering in the animals and stuff like that. So we'll take the soft wind, bring that in, and if I just plug this into the output and we turn on looping with the node selected, I can tell it to loop. And now if I hit play cue, it'll play what's in that node. So there's a looping wind sound. Now, that on its own, makes the environment feel a little bit more alive, but it's not exactly what we're going to want to use, at least not on its own. So there's that. I may want to go play with the volume of this thing on its own at some point, and we'll come back to that in a moment. Once we have more sound in here, that's when we can start bringing things in. So in order to mix several sounds together, just to no one's surprise, we're going to be using a mixer. So I'm going to plug my soft wind into the mixer and plug the mixer into the output speaker. So this just allows me to put more than one sound being output at once. We can use the add input here to add as many inputs into the mixer as we want. So there's my first sound, the soft wind. My second sound are the waves, and we're going to bring that in, and for starters, we'll just plug it into the second mixer input. So if we play the sound cue now, so we didn't tell this to loop, so it's not. And now the wind sounds too strong. It's almost overwriting the waves. So this is where we're going to want to start playing around with things. Now, what I'm going to do to manipulate this is just bring a modulator in. And you can do volume with several different things, but I like using the modulator to do this. And all I'm going to do is make sure that the pitch doesn't change. So I'll set its minimum and maximum to 1, which means it's always going to be 1. And then we can use its volume node here to play around with things. So let's try it at 75%. So 0.75. And I'll do the same thing, minimum and maximum. And then we'll play the cue again. So that still sounds a little overly strong. Let's knock it back even further. We'll try 0.5. A little bit better. I'm going to knock it back one more. And we'll stop and play the cue again. Okay, that's starting to sound a little bit better. The water is the main sound, and the air just kind of disappears into the background. So I think that's probably a pretty good starting point there. Again, we can go and edit the entire volume of everything together using the output. So if everything is too loud once I'm done, I can go and knock this back and everything gets quieter. But I'll do that at the end. I'll do that once I've got everything put together. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to bring in some of the animal sounds to start making this sound alive. So I'm going to add another input to the mixer. And let's start with the dog barking. So here's a dog bark. Now this node, if I play this one node, it's just one bark. Now that's as small as I could get it. Now this is actually from a collection of barks where the dog goes bark, 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 bark. And so there was kind of a burst of 3 barks and a burst of 2 barks. So I'm going to reproduce that in the engine. I'm going to make a burst of 3 and a burst of 2. So the way that we're going to do this, we're going to start with our bark. Then we're going to bring a delay in and put this here. The delay is in the amount of seconds between the barks. And then we're going to add a loop that is going to loop that sound. And we can tell it how many times to loop. And now this is the difference between selecting a wave node that just loops. You notice this just loops indefinitely. This is, a Boolean here. It's either true or false. This is either looping or not looping. A looping node will loop everything behind it, whereas this node is just going to loop forever. So the difference here is that if there was a modulator down here that went in here, this sound is going to loop, get modulated once. The looping sound gets modulated, then it goes into the mixer. Here, the sound gets played, waits, then changes pitch, then it loops, which means every time the loop starts over, it changes pitch. So this one with the modulator after the loop is always going to sound exactly the same. This one with the modulator before the loop will change it every time it plays. So that's the difference between using a looping node or telling a sound just to loop. So in this case, I want my dog to bark. We'll make this the burst of 3. So I'm going to turn off indefinitely and set the node to 3. Now I need to figure out how long in between dog barks. So I'll set this to, let's say 0.5 seconds, so half a second, and 1 second. And so now, if I take the looping node and I say play this node, so there's 3. So that didn't sound very good. So we're going to knock this down. Let's go to 0.1 and 0.3. So we'll make the barks a little bit closer together. So a little bit better, but it still sounds too far apart. So we're going to knock this down even further, 0.01 and 0.1. So now we'll go back to looping and we'll play this node. Closer, but I still don't think it's there. So we're going to go even closer together, like so. Grab the looping node. Yeah, that's not bad. Let's take that delay and let's just make them exactly the same distance apart. Let's see how that works. Okay, I want there to be a little bit more urgency in the dog's bark. So we're going to bring it even closer. I'll put another 1/10 of a node in here. Let's just bring this into the output. And instead of playing that node, I'll play the cue. Okay, okay. It's not bad. I think we can get them a little closer together. And maybe what I'll do, so right now, because of the way the dog wave works, there is a lot of empty space behind the dog. And so that's why no matter how small I make the delay, right, we're getting into really small numbers here. It's not actually giving them really, really close together because they don't overlap. So that's where we're going to want to kind of play with things a little bit different. And so here it would be neat to just play them one then the other. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to change this up a little bit. So I'll get rid of these. There's my dog. There's my dog bark. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a mixer in here, and we're going to mix that dog bark with the next dog bark. So we're going to take this one. It's not looping, and I'll add another dog bark and another input and another dog bark. So I have 3 dog barks now that it's going to play that it can mix together. So this right now, if I play this, it'll just play that same sound 3 times over. It made it get louder, right? There's 3 of them playing at the same time. And then what I can do is I can bring a delay in, and we can delay when this one starts. And we can delay when this one starts. So if I do this, and then we just add a fairly small number here, say 0.1 to this one, and 0.2 to this one, now it's still going to mix them together, but it has to wait a 1/10 of a second to play this one and a 20th of a second to play that one. So let's try that one now. Okay, now we're a little too close together. So let's stretch them out. Let's do 0.3, 0.3, and we'll double it so that they're at even intervals. So there's 0.6, 0.6. So let's play the mixer again. There we go. So now we've got a genuine triple dog bark. I like the sound of that. So let's do this, and I'm going to duplicate this, and now we're going to have a second dog bark. Only this one, I'll remove this pin. Now we've got a 2 bark here, and I'm going to change the how close they are together. So I'll make this one 0.4 and 0.4, and let's hear that one. That just should be a bark bark. There we go. Now, I would also like to get these barks to sound further away. So this is where the modulator is going to come in. So we're going to take those. So now we have a 2 dog bark and a 3 dog bark. And so we'll take those and we'll back them up. And now, in order to make those work at random intervals and to sound even further away, we're going to use a modulator. So we're going to modulate, and we're going to grab a looping node, and we'll loop whatever comes out of the modulation so that the dog barks, forever. And now, if I play this node, okay, so not bad. I do need to pause before we loop so that it's just not constant barking. So we'll put a pause in here, and I'm going to end up making my delay quite a bit longer in game. But for now, just so that we can hear it, I'll make it 1 second to 5 seconds. So let's try the looping now. Okay, so that's working. My only question here is why we can't hear dog number 2, or dog number 2. So it sounds like we're only getting 2 barks. Let's put this into the queue and just see what the queue plays. Yeah, so the little orange beads that follow through, they're too close together here. So I'm going to pull this one out a little bit longer, and we'll play that cue again. So it never played the 3rd bark. See, that bead isn't happening. So there's something interesting going on with the mixer here, that it's not actually playing those things at the right speed. We're going to just go and set these to have different array elements. And let's go double check this. That's at 0.8. That's at 0.3. So this should actually be playing. I just want to make sure nothing is looping here. It does sound like there's an error happening in the way that it's playing. So we'll try the cue again. So again, it only played the first two. So it's never getting to that third one. So let's bring this up and this up. I'm just wondering if the delay is cutting it off. Yeah, it sounds like it's not actually doing the third dog. And so it might be the way that this is processing. We're going to stop this and put this directly in here. Yeah, so that now I can hear it playing correctly. We're going to bring this back down to 0.6 and 0.6. Let's play the cue again. Okay, so there's our 3 barks. So let's see what we can, if we can figure out what's going on. So we're going to modulate those. And the modulation is going to make the dog sound further away by changing the volume. And the pitch is going to make it sound like different dogs. So I'm going to go down 0.2 and up 0.2 from maximum pitch and minimum pitch. So this way we'll get kind of more throaty, deep sounding dogs. Or in very high pitched dogs. Okay, so that works. So now they sound like different dogs, right? Different vocalizations. And then we're going to tell it how far away they should be. So I'm going to do 0.1, so they're very far away. And just 1 is a maximum volume. I don't need to go louder than 1. So let's play the cue again. That was a deep dog kind of nearby. That was another dog further away. Okay, so you kind of get the idea. And it's kind of working fairly well. We just need to be able to loop this. So if I loop it now, it'll just continuously loop that. So we play the cue. Okay, so what it's doing with the with this is the way that the mixer is working is that the first dog to come through is what starts the loop count. And so as soon as something passes through here, it starts back over again. And I think that's why it's overwriting that other sound. And so we're going to want to play this in a different way. Instead of mixing these together, what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to actually play them in order. And so we're going to see what we have here in order to do that, to play one thing, then another thing. So mature, mixer, modulator, oscillator, quality level, random. A random note is actually going to be fun too. So we can do a random. We'll do this eventually. We'll break the loop here. What the random is going to do is we can do random this one, and put that into modulation. So that way we play either the dog with 3 barks or the dog with 2 barks, and then we can modulate those. So if we do this. Let's play the cue, not the node. So there's 2 barks. The next time I play it, plays 3 barks. Okay, so we're getting there. We just need to get these things to play in order a little bit. And I'm just going to grab the right node to do this. So I think we want to do continuous modulation. We don't want to do. That's going to do modulation all the time. And so the idea is to grab something here. Crossfade by distance. Let's see what this gives us. Number 1, number 2. That's not what we want. Let's see if we can't find a way to set this up. So what we're going to use is the concatenator. So the concatenator, instead of the where we play this here, it's going to instead of the mixer here is what we're going to do. So what this is going to do is it's going to allow me to open this up. We've got our 3 different things here, and if we delete this guy. and we bring the concatenator in, the concatenator should play these things in sequence like this. So if I hit play now, let's actually just drag this straight into the output here. We'll move these down. So if I hit the play cue now, okay, so that works. We're going to kill the delay and put these in. So this might be an instance here. Let's do that and play the cue. So because of that dead space at the end, I can't actually get them any closer. And so we're not going to get that bark, bark, bark. We're not going to get that like one, then the other, then the other. And so that's kind of the problem with the way this works, is that it's always going to do that. And so unfortunately, that's the limitations here. So I could go back into Audacity here, and we could go and import the dog bark. So now if I grab the dog bark here, we can see where there's all that empty space at the end. It's a really, really short sound. So what I'll do is I'm just going to clip this a lot closer to the end, and I'll grab just a little bit of audio here, effect, fading, and fade out. Now, if we go file and export audio like this, we're going to do dog bark as is and overwrite it. And then inside of Unreal, this should correct the problem. So if I find my dog bark and I re-import it now, so we're going to go to, where are you, re-import. Now the clip should play a lot closer together. So let's hear the sound cue now. Okay, so better. It does kind of sound a little cut off, a little bit broken that way, but I think it should still work once we get it outside and we start getting a little bit more going. So let's put this in here. Let's put this in here. And now we've got the random 2-dog bark or the 1-dog bark. So let's go. And we don't want the delay in here. We're going to put this just not into a mixer, into another concatenator. So we'll duplicate this. Dog 1, dog 2 output. Okay. So let's hear the cue now. Okay. So now we just need to put the delay back in before it loops for how long in between dogs. Put this here, put this here. And then if we play the cue again, okay. So that works. I think we're getting like the 2-dog bark and the 3-dog bark are working fairly well. So what I would like to do now, in order to get the echo to work better, is I want to make it sound like it's outside, right? And so the idea now is to get this to sound a little bit further out. So kind of like like the dog's voice reverberating off the environment kind of thing. And so we'll get to that a little bit later. We're going to just add all of this together here. So let's put that looping dog into the other 2 sounds that we made and put this here as the output now. So we've got the soft wind, we've got the water, and now we've got 1 or 2 dogs, or 2 or 3 barks from dogs. So let's play the cue. Okay. Not bad. So it doesn't appear to actually loop the sounds. So something else might be broken in here. Randomized without replacement. That's fine. We can add different weights to the random, so what thing gets played. I think it's the, we're going to delete the other inputs here, because I think it might be trying to call those. So I'm going to try this again. Okay, so that worked. That dog was really quiet. I'm going to go to the modulator. I brought this down just way too much. Okay, so I've just pushed the dogs even further back volume-wise. So I don't want them to sound like they're right outside the cottage. I actually want to make them sound like they're further out. So that's working really well. Now, all I'm going to do with my delay is now just jack this up. This is in seconds. So I'm going to say like 15 seconds at a minimum. And we'll do 2 minutes in between dogs, right? I don't need it to sound like we're at a pound or anything like that where dogs are just going mental. And so that'll give us all of that. Now, what I can do is I can go and select all these nodes and hit C. And this is now the dogs. And so we can kind of get that. I can take these two, hit C, and this is the air, or we'll call it wind. And then this one, I'll hit C, add another comment box. This is the water. So now, at a glance, I can kind of track what these things are in terms of organization here. So then we just have our mix and our output here. Okay, let's do the same thing for some other wildlife here. The next one we've got is the frog. Let's bring the frog in. So if we play this node, so there's 3 croaks from a frog. So cool. I don't want to change that at all. So all we're going to do now is just add a delay and a loop. So we'll duplicate those two. Actually, we're going to want to modulate this too. I don't want the frogs to always sound as close as they are. So I'll grab the modulator as well. I'll put this here. The frogs, I am okay with them being a little bit closer. So what I'm going to do with the frogs is I'm going to bring their volume back up. So I'll put this maybe 0.6 as a maximum. So let's add another output pin and add our frogs into that pin. I'm just going to double click on my wire here to give me a reroute node. Oh, it doesn't look like I can in here. Okay, so we'll move these a little bit closer just so our wires don't overlap. So let's go listen now. Okay, so I'm going to stop it there. Because of the length of the delay, we can go anywhere, up to 2 minutes before the dogs bark. And we've got the same delay here. Now, I actually want to bring the frogs a little bit closer together. So I'm going to go 5 and maybe just 20 seconds at the most. So the dogs are still going to be pretty, infrequent, but I want the frogs to be a little more frequent. So that was just a lot of air and water. It didn't sound very good. So let's try this like this. Okay, that's not bad, but I think I can go even shorter in here. We're going to just do 1 second. Actually, let's even bring it down to half a second. The frogs, I want to hear them more often. Okay, so that's working. I did made a couple of changes while it was playing. I shortened the maximum delay to 8 seconds, and then in the modulation, I just went and modified the volume as well. They were just a little too far away, so I brought them a little bit closer. So we'll leave that like that. Hit C, and we've got Frugs. Okay, let's add another one. We're going to add our 2 loon calls here. Loon answer and loon call. So I'm going to bring both of these in, and we'll use a random node like this. And we're going to do 2 different things. I'm going to bring a concatenator in as well. We'll duplicate this, and I'm going to remove one of the pins on the concatenator. And so we're going to have random with 3 different options. That's too many. So 3 different options. One is the loon. Let's put these in the right order so it makes a little bit more sense. Loon call, loon answer, and then the third option is going to be, and I'll just make duplicates of these, loon call followed by the answer. So that gives us 3 different sounds for the loon. We'll grab our modulation, delay, and loop. We'll just grab the dog ones here because we want those to sound about the same. We'll put them in here. We'll add another input to our mix, and we'll add the loons in. And I'll bring these down so that, again, we can get to a point where our wires aren't crossing over and we can read everything a little bit cleaner. So let's move this up and give it another play. Okay, so that's not too bad. Again, I may want to change the delay here. Bring this down to 60 seconds. We can have a few more loon calls closer together. So I'll do that. I'll grab these and hit C. These are now the loons. Okay, I got one more that I want to add to the front, and this is going to be, or the back here, this is going to be my woodpecker sound. And I'm just going to do the same thing that I did here with the loon. We're just going to duplicate these, and so we'll get the one more input, and we'll drag this down here. And then what we're going to play here, so this is what the woodpecker sounds like. So cool, and just dit, 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 a couple of little chirps. And so that would be cool. We'll add a concatenator here, and we're going to duplicate this twice, and then we're going to have this one, and then I'm going to modulate the next one so we can make it sound a little bit different. So I want to kind of have like a double chirp. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, that was a pretty interesting pitch. So we're going to go 0.12 for this, and then we're going to set the volume to 1 and to 1. And so if I play this node now, okay, so that's going far too high-pitched. So we're going to do a different pitch here of, let's do 1.1. and try the concatenator again. So I think still a little too high. We're going to bring that down 1 point. Let's do 0.5, 1.05. Let's see how that plays. Okay, that's better. So we'll place this in here. We'll place this in here, and we'll remove that input. And now we'll play the whole thing again. Okay, so working fairly well. The only thing that bothers me right now is that there appears to be a clip inside of the, it's either inside of the wind or it's inside of the water. So I'm going to open these two waves up and see if I can't detect it here in Audacity. So I don't hear it there. So that sounds okay. Let's try the waves and see if it's in there. So import audio, and I'm going to use the waves. It might be this. I'll give it a listen. Yeah, there's something right here. So there's a little tiny, like an impact sound right there. I'm just going to cut that out of the wave and see if it sounds better. Yeah, so we're going to re-export this. Export audio, and we'll just overwrite the original sound. That little tick made it sound a little bit more drum beat-like, and so that was a problem. So we're going to re-import this again. And now let's listen to the cue again. Okay, so now I think we're getting somewhere now. We got pretty interesting thing. We've got frogs that are repeat every now and then. We've got loons that are kind of distant. We've got some dogs barking in the distance. We've got a woodpecker chirping every now and then. So it's starting to feel a little bit more live outside. So I'm going to leave this one as is. The only other thing that I want to do here is when we look at lights inside of the level. So if I were to go to my top view here and we were to look at the map and I were to select one of the light bulbs in the scene, we've got these attenuation radiuses here. And this is how far the photons can leave the light bulb. This is how far they travel before they have no energy. And so there's no light outside this circle here. It's only inside the circle. Well, if we bring our audio, that sound cue that we just made, directly into the level, you'll actually hear it everywhere in the level. There's nothing that's going to tell the system to play it softer in some places and louder in others. So that's the last thing we want to do. I'm going to bring an attenuation node in, and I'm going to plug that in. I'm going to plug it in here, and this goes after the mixer because we're going to attenuate everything, where the whole mix, the whole sound landscape that we've made is going to get this attenuation. Now, there are two different modes that you can do with attenuation. The first is that you can right-click inside of your content browser, go to audio, and you can create a sound attenuation, meaning you can create an asset that has all of your settings in it. And that way, if you're making a lot of these sound environments, you can just reuse the attenuation by plugging it in. If you don't do that, then the other option you want to do is go into the override attenuation, turn that on, and now all of the properties are going to show up here. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do is I want to get to a point where the audio is going to sound muffled. This is, really, really good for the way that it sounds. But what we want to do is we want to get these to sound a little bit more muffled like they're outside. And that's going to give us a much better sound. Now, there's a lot of things that we can do here with attenuation, and it would definitely be really really good to play with these even further. So a lot of these sounds, for instance, one of the things with attenuation is we can add some reverb onto this. So here's the attenuation reverb, and what that's going to do is it's going to give it something of an echo. So you can kind of hear this reverberating off the environment outside. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play with the attenuation by itself, and we're going to put the attenuation on the dog bark, just the dog bark on its own. So that way what we can do is we can test this with a looping dog to get the sound to work the right way, and then we'll plug our mix in. So if I just do this, now all I'm doing is just attenuating the dog bark. So if I play the cue, right, we just get an annoying dog. So now if I grab this, we can start playing with the distance here and how this is going to work. And so I'm going to do we'll play with the reverb first here. We'll see if we can't get this to sound a little bit more spatial. Now I apologize, this is going to sound really annoying while I work on this, but I'm just going to play the cue, let it loop, and play with the attenuation settings. So we'll play cue. Okay, so I need to make a change here because my settings aren't affecting anything, because as I mentioned earlier, if I loop this, it only goes to the attention node once, the attenuation node. So I'm going to loop after the attenuation node so that we can hear the changes while it's looping. So we'll play the cue again. Okay, that's enough of that. So it doesn't look like playing with any of these things here, I'm actually getting any real results. And so we'll just skip right over that. We'll leave it as is. So I'm not going to get any of the reverb here. Now, if I wanted to kind of get a delay, I could do this delay and then just play the sound again. So like delay and repeat it, and that would give me an echo, pitching the volume down each time. But I think that will work without that. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the occlusion, and I want to turn the occlusion on. So the idea with occlusion is that it's going to give us the ability to make it sound like the audio that we're hearing is muffled from being outside. So for this, we don't actually need the dog barking. What I'm going to do is put our original audio back in here so you can hear this. That dog barking was just too annoying. So let's go and do this. I'll put the output here. We'll play the cue, and I'm going to grab the attenuation node. So what we're looking for is the occlusion and the low pass filter. What that's going to do is it's going to remove some of the high end, which is going to make it sound muffled. So the 20,000 here is the default. Let's bring this down to 500. And then replay the cue. So we're not going to hear it too well in here. And the reason for that, I'm just going to save this and stop it. The reason for that is that occlusion uses geometry. So in order to actually hear the occlusion, we're going to have to bring it into the world in order to hear it going. So I'll play with those settings kind of a little bit last. The only other thing that I want to do with the attenuation, and I'll show you this as I bring the attenuation node in. So there's our radius of 100% volume, which is probably too small. and a radius of 0% volume, which is really too big. So we're going to go and make this work a little bit better. So I'm going to place this kind of centered in the height of the house here from above. We'll open this thing and go and play with our settings where we can see them from above. So the two nodes, the two values that we're going to change are the inner radius. That's where the volume is at 100. So I'm going to make this maybe 1,000. So that's really nice and big. So you can see that 100% volume is kind of coming from just right about there. And I'm going to bring it, just a little bit outside the house, something like that. The other thing is the fall off of where it's going to reach 0. So I'm going to do something like that. So you can see that at the front of the house, we shouldn't hear the water anymore. And while at the east side of the house, we should hear a lot of the water. Now, this is going to work nicely once we make a west side ambience, because the other sphere will cross over this one. And in the middle of the house, we'll hear little bits from the east and little bits from the west. Then little bits from the north, little bits from the south. So as we start adding the 4 different cardinal directions here, those sounds are all going to overlap in the center of the house, and they kind of just blend into each other. So because the volume doesn't just hit 0, we'll hear little bits of everything. So that's kind of the way that's going to work. The only other thing, I'm going to save this here. We're going to play with that attenuation again in a moment. The only other thing that I want to check is that that sound node is at a little bit of a higher point, just so that the sphere 100% is a little bit closer. So I'm going to hit play, and we're going to go into the house here, like so. Okay, so there's an error that's occurring. This is because of the third-person blueprint, which we're going to go fix. So by default, the third-person blueprint has some VR stuff on it, and that's breaking everything. So we're just going to delete that and recompile. And now my white robot guy should walk around. Okay, so not bad. So now we're getting the sound doing the right thing. If I hit play and run to the front of the house, just to show you the volume fall off from the attenuation. So there's 100%. And there it's gone. Okay, so now I can actually go play with the occlusion stuff to get it to work. And so we're going to go see just how well that works. So I'm going to turn on the occlusion, and let's see if that works. Okay, let's try and see what this does. So I'll hit play again. Not too bad. I'm going to bring my value down a little bit lower. So I'll bring this on screen so you can see what I'm editing here. So I'm playing. Let's try that again. I'm playing with the low pass filter frequency. And what that's supposed to do is cut the high end out of the audio. So I've got it as low as... So I've got it as low as 100, which means the geometry is really muffling the audio. Okay, now we're talking. So it looks like bringing that low pass filter to 100, and I'm using world static. That's going to use the geometry here as the occlusion stuff. So that appears to be working really, really well. Okay, the next thing that I want to do is make a Western version of my audio. So I have my East sound cue. I now want to change up some of the sounds and add a Western side of this, and then see how the two things play together. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the East, and we'll change the name of it to West. And now I've got, again, the same starting point where the sound is correct. We're just going to go and do a few things. So first, I don't need to hear the water out front. So we can remove that pin. The second thing is that I want to change the pitch of the wind. Right now the pitch is at 1, and so if we play this node, that's what the wind sounds like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pitch the wind up. Let's go a quarter, 1.25. 1.5, 1.5, and this guy is looping, so we need to play that node, this node. Okay, not too bad. Let's bring it up to 2. Okay, so good. So it still sounds like wind. That's what I'm after. And I want to just show you the difference between these things. So I'm not looking for a drastically different sound. I just want it to sound like different wind. So there's wind 1, there's wind 2. So here's wind 1 and wind 2. So it just sounds slightly different. So that's kind of what I'm after. So we're going to continue working on this one. This is west again. So now I've got different wind. The water's gone. I'll leave maybe the dogs in here, the loons. Maybe we'll get rid of the loons. That's one of the ones that we can replace. Actually, I probably don't want the frogs in here too. So instead of frogs, actually, instead of the loons, let's bring the twig snap in. So we're going to bring the twig snap in. Now, I only have one version of the twig snap. And so what I'll do is I'll put the twig snap in here. I'll put the twig snap in here. And I'll put the twig snap in here. And we'll delete our woodpeckers and bring this here. So now this sound is just the twig snapping. And again, we'll check the delay on this. 5 seconds in a minute. So we'll bring this down to 2 seconds. And we'll replay this node. Let's wait for the delay. Let's play this one. So good. So we just have some like clicking and ticking and stuff that's going to happen. So I'm going to bring this down to 0.1 second and maybe just 15 seconds for the delay there. I don't want loons. That's going to be bothersome. And then instead of dogs, we're going to make a car go by. And so that'll work really, really well. So here, we're going to delete all of this. I don't need the random because I'm only going to do 1. And then we'll grab our car drive by and bring that in. Now this is quite a long sound here, so I want to make sure that the delay is still set pretty high. And then we'll go and just clean up this box here a little bit so that it's a little bit cleaner as well. So just do this. We'll rename this. This is now car. This is still frog. Yeah, it's still frog. So this one changed. This one's not a woodpecker anymore. So we'll go and rename the woodpecker one. The woodpecker is now twig snap. So we'll do this, twig snap. And I'll get rid of the frogs too. We don't want those. So we'll delete that input and delete that input. And we'll just clean out the frog nodes here so we don't have those. So let's listen to this one now. Play the cue. Okay, not bad. We didn't hear the car go by, mainly because the delay is just too big, but that's okay. Again, I don't want this to be a very busy road. So I'm going to go add these 3 things here. I'm going to go find another sound to add to this because it's a little dead to me. So we're going to look for some chickadee sounds here and see what we can find. So there's a bird, chickadee, this kind of thing. I like this one because I can see the breaks in it. So let's have a listen to this. That's not too bad. Let's try this one. Okay, I like that one. We're going to take that one. I'll download it as WAV. Now, this one, I'm actually not going to do this in the same way. I'm not going to bring this in to... I'll bring that here. We're not going to bring this into Audacity. What I'm going to do is just bring it in as is. So I like the sound that it has. So I've gone and just renamed it, and I'll bring it in here, birds. There they are there. Okay, lovely. So what we're going to do is modulate, delay, loop. I like those. Bring those in here. Bring the birds in. Plug the birds in. And we've got modulation. That sounds okay. The delay is going to be, well, that's probably really good too. Let's try the loop and listen to see what it sounds like. – 15 seconds is probably much. Let's turn that delay down. Let's go to about 8 seconds. Let's add another pin and put this in, and we'll listen to the whole thing again. So grab the output here. We'll play the cue. Okay. So I think we're pretty good there. It'd be nice to hear the car pass by at least once. But this has got a totally different sound now than the sound that we have out front. I'm going to go to the wind sound. We're going to bring this volume down a little bit further. 0.15. And we'll stop and replay the cue. Okay, that's sounding pretty good. Oops. All right, so I like that. We're going to stop this. We'll close this. We're going to go to our top view, and we'll bring this one in. Again, I didn't put as much effort into the second one here, but it should. Bring this here. And again, I want to look at both of these selecting. I want to make sure that there's enough overlap here. So this, I'm going to bring a little bit closer to the house. And then let's go have a listen to the soundscape. There's the water one on the east side of the house. And there's the east. Let's wait till we can hear some wildlife. Okay, not too bad. I think the only problem I have is that we're losing the birds because of the high-pitched nature of their call, and they're just really, really soft. So I'm going to bring this down to 0.5 and maybe 1.2. I'm going to amp up their volume a little bit. And again, my reason for doing this is that I want to be able to hear them even with the muffled sound. So I think I've got the muffling just too strong on this one because of the high pitch nature. So we're going to grab our attenuation node. I'm going to go find the, we'll pull this down. Here's the occlusion. And I'm going to bring that occlusion up a little bit. We'll go from 100 to 300. Let's see if that works better. Not too bad. Now, there is a weird issue that's occurring by the window, which is I can actually angle the camera in such a way. Let's go to top perspective. I can actually angle the camera into a position here in the kitchen where there's a gap in between the curtains, meaning there's nothing to block the sound. And so if you look at what the sound's looking at, essentially it sees this. So you can see through the windows, the sound will just go right through. So there's kind of a little bit of a problem there. And I may want to go put a piece of geometry behind this to block the sound, but not necessarily block the lighting. And so I'm going to grab just a plane, which I'll bring in here. And I'm going to go and rotate it 90 degrees. I'm going to make it face the outside. And we're going to bring it up in size. Now, the reason that I'm using a plane is twofold. Number one, I can shape it to the size of the window here. But more importantly, if we look outside here, it's not really affecting too much. And so let's see. Make sure that it's blocking from both sides. Let's go have another listen. Yeah. Yeah, pretty good. So the only thing I just want to fix for a second is the delay in the cars. And that's just because I want you to be able to hear the cars. And so I'm just going to do 1 second and 2 seconds and play it again just so we can hear a car go by. Okay, we're going to adjust our attenuation a little bit further. I'll bring this up to 500. Give it another go. Yeah, that works. Okay, I'm only going to do one more thing here, and then we'll call it a day with this video. In order to do this, I'm going to first bring the light bulb mesh. I'm going to make a clone of this. I want to do something towards the front door here, so I'm just going to bring the light bulb mesh down, and I'm going to hold Shift and drag it this way. I'm just going to put a light in the front entranceway here so we can play around with something here too. Let's bring it up into the ceiling here. So over here, I'm not sure how this happened, but at some point a mesh got deleted here. If in the outliner you do a search for clock, you'll see that there's something called grandfather clock that appears to be right here, but there's nothing there. There's no mesh or anything. And that's because they've actually broken the reference to it. So I'm not sure where that happened. What I'm going to do is just go into the content folder and do a search for clock as well. And there's the grandfather clock. It's still in here. And so all I need to do now is just go and hit the arrow and reassign that mesh. Now the clock's back where it's supposed to be. So you should now kind of see where I'm going with this. And so the idea, if we were to go look at a clock tick, let's see what we can find here. Tick clocks, all kinds of different things here. This is the first one. Let's listen to this. Okay, that sucks. That is not a real clock. That is just some noise. So let's see what we can find here. Nope. Not bad. It's like somebody's mouth. That's not bad. I want to avoid chimes. Let's maybe add grandfather clock here and see if that gets us anything better. Chime, 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 chime. Tick-tocks. There we go. I like that one. I'm going to download this as a wave. We're going to go into Audacity. I'll kill this one. And I'm going to bring that over into my proper folder here. And I'll rename it source. And let's go and play with that. So import audio. We're going to go grab the grandfather clock. And we're going to double click here. I'm going to go to Effect. I'm going to go to Volume Compression and Normalize. And this is going to allow me to see that waveform a little bit better. And in fact, you can see this goes on for 1.5 minutes. That's way too long. So I'm just going to delete everything after 5 seconds. And we'll get rid of that. We'll go back to the beginning. And we can see where the tick-tock sort of thing is here. So I'm going to delete everything before that first tick. And tick-tock, 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 tick-tock. So this should work really well. Looks like this one is a tick. So we're going to get rid of that. Just over 3 seconds. Let's see how well this loops. I'm going to shave off just a little bit more. Okay, good enough. File. We're going to export audio. And this is our clock now. So we're going to do wave_clock. So this is going to be a slightly different audio sound cue here. Instead of being something that's going to be very ambient in nature, this one is going to be very specifically built, specific purpose kind of thing. So I'm just going to go to my desktop into my audio folder, and we're going to go and import that clock. So I want to find wave, clock. There it is there. So now it's in here. We're going to create a new audio, and we're going to create a new sound cue. We'll call this SC clock. We'll open that up, and then we'll bring our clock sound in, and the clock sound obviously needs to loop. So we can put this here and put this here. Now, depending on how interesting you want to make the clock, like we'd also bring in some chimes if we wanted. Though the chimes, we would need to make the chimes go off on the hour. And so we'd need a delay, and we'd need to make that go fairly long. And, there's not much point in making it last an hour. Now, we don't want to do under an hour. Like, if you wanted to force the chimes to happen while your video is going, that's fine. But if you shorten it to less than an hour, what you're going to find happen is that if the player plays your game longer than the delay you do, let's say you do a 2-minute delay to make it, make sure it happens inside your video. Well, if the player plays for 4 minutes, we'll hear the chimes go off twice, which shouldn't happen. And so for that reason, we probably don't want to go too crazy with that. Now, if I were building an entire game, let's say we're doing a Resident Evil style thing, and you had, hours and hours of gameplay inside of a house where there is a clock, then I would even do something like getting the actual system clock time and making the chimes go off, reading the integer value for the hour and looping the chime for that number. You can get all of that set up here as well. But we'll go do this. I'm going to need an attenuation node in here as well, because we don't want to hear the clock everywhere in the house. So we'll pull an attenuation node in here. And then we're going to go in the attenuation, override its settings, and I'm just going to bring this down to about 1 meter, and we'll bring this down to maybe 5 meters. We'll see how that works out. Again, I can't really tell by just grabbing numbers here. So what I'm going to want to do is bring that clock node in, something like that. And yeah, that looks pretty decent here. We're just going to move it so it's in the right place. And then we're going to go into the perspective and get it out of the floor so that it's where the clock is. So inside that sphere that you see, that's where we're going to hear the clock at 100%. And this is where the clock fades out. So we'll hear the clock from here all the way to the front door. And you can see that even going through the kitchen here, it'll work. Now, the other thing that I'm going to do with this is I'm also, on the attenuation node, going to add that muffling. So we're going to go down into the occlusion, turn that on, and I'm going to reduce this number to something like 300. Okay, and then we'll save this. We'll use the complex collision as well, and I'm going to use world static for the collision. So let's do that and give the clock a listen. Not bad. There's the actual sound outside. That's what we're getting muffled from being in the house. So yeah, that's working pretty well. The only thing that I need to do in order to fix this here is on my west side. In order to make sure that I heard the cars, I shortened the delay. There's kind of always a car going by right now. So I'm going to go and increase that. We'll keep about 15 seconds between cars and up to 2 minutes between cars. It's not a very busy road. I'm also going to, in the modulation here, make sure that my volume is loud enough that we can always hear the cars too. And so that's the last thing we'll do. Maybe before I even do that, just because I really want to hear that car. We're going to go and set this back to 1 second, 2 second, just before we're done here. So let's go listen to a car drive by. There we go. That works. I might want to turn down the volume of the clock too, but we'll just go fix this delay. So I like 15 seconds. Ooh, 15 seconds, and I like 120 seconds here. So we'll kill that, and then we're just going to go and fix the clock because it's a little loud. So there's the attenuation. There's this guy. There's the output. We're going to just turn our volume down on this. So I'm going to go to 0.65 and save that. So that should kill how loud the clock is. A little bit better. Good. Yeah. So there we go. We've got some lovely soundscape going on. We've got some very dynamic things happening. We've got a lot of interplay between these things, and because of the positioning of the ambient nodes, because we've got one in the west and we've got one, and we got one in the east. We've got a little bit of overlap in the middle of the world here, where we can hear both of them at a reduced level. Once you get one of the north and one of the south, that overlap becomes even bigger still, because we'll get another sphere through here and we'll hear a little bit of each of those three here. And then when you get one in the north, or in the south rather, you'll hear even a fourth one here. So the idea is to mix around enough of these sounds, you know, kind of playing off this idea that we're hearing stuff outside. Now remember that, again, I'm doing this using just the default theme here of this is a cottage out in the wilderness somewhere. I'm just using visually when I see. All of your audio must adhere to your theme, and must be as connected to that theme as your lighting is. So the lighting and the audio soundscape are going to go kind of hand in hand, making sure that this all fits the perceived theme of your world. So I hope that's been helpful. And I wanted to make sure that you had some reference here to be able to go over this stuff and adjust what you were doing. And so there you have it. There is doing the sound cues and doing that really nice audio to make the level feel a little bit more alive.